Over the course of the last several years, I've been noticing a lot of videos, a lot of publications in farm magazines, a lot of online posts about farmers digging up the roots and looking at the root structure. And that's definitely very important because roots is the root of all of your success on the farm. It's where you build up the base of your row crop. So if you don't have good roots, you're not going to have real good productivity. But most of these posts and videos and everything have been from farmers that have been practicing intensive tillage, especially a lot of vertical tillage and deep tillage to try and break up any kind of subsoils and everything. Now, as you know, on our farm, we definitely preach a lot different practices than that intensively plowed up ground because we really believe in the long-term benefits of no-tills and cover crops and building up your soil, putting carbon in the soil, etc., etc., etc. So really haven't seen many people in the no-till or cover crop situation really do a whole lot of digging, looking at how good their roots on their crops are, and we're getting late on in the crop season, and I thought today would be a good day to go look at our roots. Is what we're preaching, is it actually working for us? Or are we actually hindering ourselves by all of our conservation practices? We won't know until we put a shovel in the ground and find out. Now, if I had to guess, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see results, better rootings, better rooting structure than what you would see over regular no-till. However, I don't think we're going to see quite a good rooting structure as someone who has just ran ripper and done intensive tillage, because our process is definitely a long-term process, not just a multi-year process, but could be a multi-decade process, just depending on how great your soils are. So without actually looking at it, I kind of think that's probably what we're going to see. We're going to see progress, but we're going to see that we haven't arrived yet. So we'll see out in the field and just see just where we lie. All right, we're going to start our 2023 root tour out here in the cornfield, and to help us determine if our soil health practices are helping us out, we brought someone out here who's been known to root around from time to time. Yeah, we got Dylan Joyce Farms. He's got several different practices on his farm. He's experimenting, especially with some deep tillage this year, and trying to break up the soil to get greater rooting depth and everything. So I thought he'd be a good person to call out here and help us to determine just how well our practices compare to what he's seen on his farm this year in both no-till and some deep intensive tillage operations. See how they compare, and if trying to determine how much tillage aids you in getting real good root penetration.
Well, like Matt said, I've got about every system under the sun this year. What started me looking at deeper tillage was a new farm we picked up last year that the soybean yield was just terrible. We started looking at some deep tillage. We've ripped some farms over the years, but we got a little more intensive this year, and we're just trying to learn new things this year. We got farms that's been in no-till over 10 years, and then this year we hadn't ripped none of our long-term no-till ground yet. We're gonna have to see how this year pans out before I make that decision. But we have seen some real benefits to ripping as far as root depth. This Matt's corn here is a little bigger than the corn we looked at, but we've looked at some V8 corn and had roots 2 foot deep in the ground where we done some deep tillage. So
I guarantee you they probably went deeper than that. You just can't, unless you got a backhoe, you can't really dig them all up.
What impressed me was we just had a lot more root mass. Now, how will that root mass affect yield? I don't know, but you feed your plant through your roots, and we're hoping that maybe we'll increase our yield. But just looking at Matt's ground here, The first thing I noticed is the top is pretty mellow. You know, Matt's been doing cover crops several years, or he said since 2015 here, and the top is good and mellow. But I'm noticing, you know, right here where, what would you say that depth was?
You're probably good 4 or 5, 6 inches in the ground.
And that's, you know, that's the same thing Robert and I were finding on our farm. Well, our ground actually was not as mellow on top as Matt's is here, which we was kind of in a dry spell. But the reason I wanted to dig in the center of the row here is I wanted to see how far Matt's roots was coming out. Robert and I's on 30-inch row, so we expect to see roots in the center of the row. And Matt here is on 38s, and he's got, you know, he's got roots out to the center of the row. This is coming off his corn plant, so I mean, he's
how nice is it walking down these 38-inch rows?
It's nice. Got a little more airflow compared to our 30s. It's a little bit cooler in here.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of think 38-inch rows kind of help mitigate not being put out a higher population in our heat here in West Tennessee. You know, you do get more airflow to help cool the corn plant through, so it doesn't make up for being on wider rows, but it is one benefit that I think helps us get bigger yields.
And Matt's on talking about population. One thing I've noticed on Matt's corn is his corn, Robert and I experienced a lot of tip back this year, which most all our corn was planted on 30,000 on 30-inch rows. And Matt's corn failed all the way out to the end.
Well, also, this corn was planted right there the first part of May.
Okay, see, I'll send Matt the picture where maybe he can insert it in the video if he wants to. But we saw our planting, Matt planted his in a 3-day window, ain't that right?
Yeah, 3-4 days.
And ours was planted, we started planting April the 13th and finished May the 4th. And that corn planted May the 4th failed all the way out to the end like Matt's here. And some of the earlier corn suffered some real severe tip back. Just planting date and catching that heat and dry at the wrong time really done it, where this May corn, apparently it hit stuff right.
Yeah, I mean, we're separated by about 45 minutes, but generally when I got a rain, he got a rain too. The amounts may have differed a little bit, but we generally got about the same rainfall at the same time, and my corn was just a little bit farther behind, and during that critical time when it was setting ear size, a lot of Dylan's corn was in some real hot, dry conditions, where mine was about 4 or 5 days behind it and missed the stress.
You know, I noticed one thing I've looked at Matt's corn. Right here, this is a little lower elevation. I don't see it firing up. What was this planted at, population?
We can do a check, but I'm gonna guess in this spot probably around 24,000-25,000. It looks a lot different than it did this time last year.
Oh yeah,
this time last year the ear leaf was fired up.
What are you thinking on a crop this year, Matt? I'm thinking slightly below average yields.
I'm thinking, for me, I'm gonna have above average yields. Like you said, it's not firing up. I don't have the tip back. I'm expecting, especially if we can catch 1 or 2 more rains, I'm expecting some pretty big yields.
I do feel the shovel hit a hard pan right here. About, like I said, it's about the same.
I wish I brought my penetrometer out here with me.
About the same depth my compaction layer's been, and Matt and I over the years, Matt's implemented, other than the cover crops, Matt and I have run fairly similar practices over the years.
And the thing about the cover crops, what I've noticed is what I've noticed is that, you kind of start at the top and work your way down with fixing the soil, because I mean the greatest concentration of roots is going to be in the top, and we've definitely turned the top 5 or 6 inches into kind of some cottage cheese, real good soil structure. But this is not going to be this is this is going to be a never-ending task. Every year we're going to get a little bit better, and better. And you know, the more roots we get in the ground over the years, the more pore space we open up, the better off we'll be. But what we're going to try and do today is dig up a ball of corn roots and make sure that even though Dylan's kind of hit a hard layer with a shovel, if we still got roots going down through that hard layer, then the plant's doing what it's supposed to do.
One thing here, I've noticed Matt's kind of got two different layers here. You see how when I flip this over, I'm gonna say that's about well, I didn't do it right, but that's about a 2-inch depth, and well, I can't make it break off even like it did a while ago, but
this is a pretty good example right
here.
Yeah, so you got real good structure, nice cottage cheese, but then we get to a platy structure beneath it, which is what we're trying to break up. There's another good example.
Yeah, and then we hit another one about the 6-inch depth. So
then look at that nice dark color right there on top, all that organic matter there in the soil. So we're about 10 days since the last rain over here, so the soil's definitely starting to get dry again. But you know, at least the top 10 inches, so Dylan's digging fairly easy. And then this soil chunk right here that came about 6 inches down, you can see that platy structure very clearly, which is what you're going to see in no-till ground in West Tennessee. That's what we're trying to get rid of.
Here's a really good example, Matt. All right, you see how these roots right here, they turned instead of continuing to go. Now you got pore space.
We got earthworm holes all through there
in it, but the trouble is trying to get your roots to find it. Now when these roots do find them, they can go down them holes, but this is what, whether I've watched several things, Greg Salter, Yield 360, he claims that every time a root has to turn, that is yield loss. So, but we can definitely see where these roots turned. Right here, you can see where it turned. Now, is that true? I don't know, but I mean, the man has come up with a lot of stuff. I don't try to tear down anybody's practices. I mean, I'm constantly trying to learn. Me and Matt, we talk a lot, and I try to learn from him, and he tries to learn from me. And I think as farmers, a lot of times we get caught up in tearing each other down when we need to be trying to help each other out.
Yeah, that's something I can agree with wholeheartedly. We all got our philosophies, but there's a lot of times there's a lot more than one correct way to achieve your goals.
I mean, in the end is for me, I want to take care of my ground, but I've got to be profitable while I take care of it. And to me, Matt, I think this ground right here is about right digging, because it's crumbling enough that it's coming off the roots, but it's got enough moisture that we can actually dig in it. It's not a concrete slab. See, there's one, I broke him off, but he's going deeper. Now, the thing is, let's see if we can get him dug up and just see how deep he is going. And see how I'm hitting that. We've been really mellow until I've got to right here. And I bet when we flip this corn plant over, when I get dug around him, I bet that's where the roots will stop. I call them pancake roots.
We're in one of my farms that's extremely thin. It was highly eroded, and a lot of places in this field, maybe not this particular spot, a lot of places in this field, You know, we might only have 2 inches of topsoil before we hit that fragile and that's a problem with the majority of our land. Is that, well, it was conventionally tilled and had cotton grown on it year after year for, you know, well over 100 years. So
we're gonna have to sacrifice about 3 plants, Matt. We took Matt from 300 down to 299. I like to get rid of them plants beside the other ones, so I'm not cutting a lot of the corn plant we're actually digging to try to find. See, it took quite a bit of force to get down through that. And a lot of what I was telling Matt earlier, we've been blessed with some really good yields here in West Tennessee. Some really good growing conditions about up until last year. And last year bit a lot of us in the butt. Some of them, on years like last year, I think that's when our mistakes show up. Rain covers a lot of mistakes. You can get through it, but it takes some force.
And you know, for all I know, we could be hitting the frangipane, or we could be hitting an old plow layer from 25 years ago. Because he's hitting that hard pan about the depth that we used to run our chisel plows way back in the day.
Matt makes a good point. I've noticed it on a lot of new farms we've picked up. I can tell at what depth they have worked that farm. But Matt's trying to fight his with cover crops, but I'm not really that patient. So I've been running the ripper. Now they make a thing called a inline ripper, and if it's a very low disturbance, and I think in Matt's situation that's something that if he did decide he wanted to speed this process up, he could run that inline ripper, still leave a lot of residue on the ground, but still have his cover there and give his cover crop a path to go down. I told Matt some of the best corn I ever grew was, let's look at this one. Some of the best corn I ever grew, I actually ripped and then planted a cover crop behind it. And I think a lot of it was that ground stayed mellow for over 3 years after doing that practice. But it's kind of tightened back up now.
And that kind of goes in line with my thinking. You know, we're trying to fight all of our old compaction builder soil up strictly with plants getting roots in the ground, which is a lot longer process than tillage. But in our opinion, it's kind of a more permanent solution, especially if you can keep roots in the ground, you know, all year long, every year. You know, once you get your soil where you need to, you know, those keeping roots in there will keep your soil from getting back compacted again, unless you physically get in there and do something you're not supposed to do.
The biggest thing on our farm that always, and it's a darn struggle every year, you see your neighbor out there planting, and you know that ground is too wet to be out there planting, but you just can't stand to sit there and wait. And that is our biggest enemy every year, is waiting for this ground to get right. I mean, there comes a day you eventually got to pull the trigger, but just staying off that ground when it's wet is about the best thing you can do. All right, Matt, here's what I want you to, we got some roots. We do have some roots going deeper, but you see how you got this big slab right here. You got roots through it, but it's trying to come up on a plane. That's the biggest thing we've noticed with ripping this spring, is we don't have this plane. these roots are just going all the way down. That's the biggest thing we've noticed now. We've hit this plane, and you see how it's kind of mellowing back out now, Matt?
Yep. I mean, your finger going down there easy.
The thing is our roots getting through this hard pan to get down there. That's the biggest thing, and that's what we're gonna try to attempt to see without breaking these roots off. All right, moment of truth. All right, you got a little root there going down.
Well, what I want to point out, this big root right here. See how it's got that kinky in it?
Yes, to me, that's a killer. Now,
a lot of those others look like they're going straight down, but you do have that one that got turned sideways.
All right, Matt, here's one thing I want you to look at. You see how all these roots right here are in a row?
Probably found a seam down through there.
This was too hard for the roots to go through. So they came over here and they found them a path to go down. You had some kind of seam that them roots found. Well, to me, it almost looks like you got your corn plant here, and it almost looks like it found a planter track from years past is what it looks like to me. That may not be the case, but there was something there that them roots like, that they're going to take the path of least resistance. But
then you get over here, I mean, you can kind of see a line there. You kind of see a line there where this you got cracks in this. I don't know if that's fragipan or hard pan. It looks more like a hard pan to me than a fragipan. You don't see that mottled.
You got some roots on down deeper, Matt, here. Like, once you get through that pan, this ground mellows back out. All right, now here's a root that hit. You see this root that hit a hard spot, and he turned.
Yep.
It's kind of a blocky structure. But here, I mean, you got one root.
Well, we're down in the subsoil. You kind of see that. You kind of see that mottled color. So we're down in a fragipan right now. See,
Matt and I have very shallow soils. We might, on what do you say, best ground, we got 6 inches of topsoil.
I mean, right there, we're probably about 4 to 6 inches. Now, you get in some river bottom ground, a lot of times you'll have deeper, but here on these eroded hill grounds like this, you know, we're looking about 6 inches of topsoil in this spot before we hit that natural fragipan.
All right, Matt, this root right here, he went that deep before he turned again.
But you can see another line of roots kind of in the seam going down.
And that's a lot of the reason Matt and I try to show this stuff. We want you to watch our stuff and form your own opinion. And, you know, maybe you can learn something the easy way, where me and Matt had to learn it the hard way.
And that's something I don't want to come across on my channel. You know, I've spouted off a lot of the benefits of cover crops, and I've shown some of the problems with cover crops too, but I don't want anybody thinking from watching me that cover crops is a silver bullet and is going to fix every problem with your soils and your farm, because it's not. It's just another tool in the box to hopefully accomplish your goals, and it's a very long process. You know, I wouldn't say multi-year process. It can be a multi-decade process to get where you need to be. But you know, it's a very valuable tool, but it's by no means is it going to solve every problem that you've got, and it does have the potential to cause further problems if it's not managed right.
One thing I think that has benefited us a little bit this year from doing tillage is mixing this soil a little bit. We're kind of burning up our residue a little bit. We're breaking that residue down faster and getting the release of those nutrients from the tillage, mixing and incorporating.
Yeah, well, we're down in the subsoil there. You bring up some of that whitish ground. We're several inches into the subsoil now.
A lot of that is what saves you. All right, he's starting to turn. Some of that though, you want them roots down in there. That's worth a lot in a dry year. You're going down there after that moisture. There ain't really, I don't think there's really any nutrients down there, but you're headed after that moisture.
And not only that, you want an easy pathway for the moisture to come to rise in the soil up towards the top where your plants are drying it out. And
here's one thing I've noticed on my farm. I had one farm and that ground come up when we ripped it like slabs of concrete. And we was having problems with that farm washing. And we worked it up. I mean, it was a powder, and I was worried about it washing because it was a very steep farm. But we did, what we actually noticed, instead of running off, where we left some spots where we didn't rip. The water, where we didn't rip, the water was pulled up on top of the soil and running, and where we ripped, the ground was actually absorbing the moisture. I'm not going to say that's always going to be the case, but it helps. If we, if we can get it absorbing that water again and make a big bean crop on it and get some residue covering that soil and get it to absorbing that moisture, and we're actually going to plant wheat on that farm this year to provide some cover. And we see some real benefits to planting wheat behind soybeans instead of corn. Everybody's got varying opinions, but when people talk about going to a no-till system, I tell them to address any issues that they may have before they start. Get it leveled up, get your compaction taken care of, and then go into that system. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely, I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. Before you transition into a no-till or cover crop situation, go ahead and get your problems fixed, either through tillage, lime, get your lime worked in the soil, get all that done, and then transition.
Man, unless you want to say how much further it goes, but that one, he's going to China.
If you want to keep on digging, I think you're irrigating my corn surrounding me to make up for those that you haven't shot down. You're dripping with some sweat pretty good there. No, I'm good. I seen what I need to see.
I'd like to see how deep he went, but
Nah, you could be digging 4 or 5 feet.
Here's kind of my thoughts though, is what we noticed on the rip, and Matt's got one going deep here, but we had where you see where this one turned. What we've noticed with the ripping is this one would have went on down as deep as that one.
I think what we're saying is, I've still got a compaction layer here, but we have created some channels. The roots just have to find that channel. Our goal is to get all of this down here, just like the top 4 to 6 inches right here, get it nice and mellow and cottage cheese. It's just going to take a lot of time.
Yes, we want this much root mass all the way down here. That's what I talked about this spring. Everybody keeps pushing strip till on me. I don't want to use just 4 to 6 inches here. There's nutrients out here. Especially if you're in a broadcast application, might using chicken litter, there's nutrients out here. We don't want no seed trench here. Y'all heard Eric talk about destroying this seed trench. We want these, and I'm not saying that in yours, Matt. You got roots. You run furrow force. You got roots all the way out to the center of the row. But my thing with strip till is, yes, you can ban nutrients, but we got nutrients out here I want to capture too. I want to use every inch of this soil, make every inch of this soil work for me.
All right, out here in this field, we're going to try to make this a little bit shorter, but we're in my intensively plowed ground that we did earlier. We didn't do any kind of deep tillage, but we did run a disc over it 3 times, trying to smooth this field out some, then ran a dew all over. So we plowed it up to a fine powder. So we're going to try and see if we can find any kind of a distinct hard pan from the horizontal tillage that we did on here and see what it looks like. And see how that ground just crumbling up, no structure whatsoever from the intense tillage. Well, that's about as deep as a discus biting right there.
Well, Matt, we kind of got different opinions. You say no soil structure, but I say a loose, crumbly soil that roots can go through.
It is that, but this time next year, without repeated tillage, this is going to be a block of concrete because it's going to collapse. It's not going to have any kind of a pore space in it, no place for air to go in, for water to go in, and it's just going to pond water, in my opinion, this time next year, once it overwinters. Also, very susceptible to erosion. Now, we are in kind of a bottom, so.
Well, I can already tell here that we're digging in a lot different soil type than what we was up there on that old hill.
Yeah, a lot more topsoil down here.
I mean, the old ground is mellow. You can't dig it with your hands unless you get aggressive. But yeah, I mean, I've looked at this corn. I think Matt's gonna have some real corn here just looking at it.
You see any kind of evidence of a hard pan?
You got one about right. Get my screen back on. You got one about right there. But
about as deep as this was running.
I think you're gonna see a yield advantage this year. Now, like you said, what will your soil be like? And we need to come back next spring. We need to come back next spring and look at it after it's overwintered and we've had some of them hard packing winter rains and see what it's like.
There ain't no doubt there's gonna be a yield advantage on this. Been no-till for years, and then you plow it up once, introducing all that oxygen into the soil. Your microbes are burning through that organic matter, providing a lot of nutrients for the corn. There ain't no doubt there's gonna be a yield advantage this year.
I mean, you still got some blocky structure, but you see how your roots are not all congregated there in one spot. They're spread out. I mean, you just got to look at things from long-term perspective versus which you've kind of penciled your inputs down pretty good over the years to the bear to be extremely profitable.
Yeah, we're trying to put out as minimum as possible, but yeah, whereas that's kind of goes into long-term goals, whereas mine might be different than another person's. I'm trying to set my soul up for extreme long-term risk management to where I don't have to keep on doing a practice every year to get my roots down in the ground with tillage, and also trying to maximize how much the soil can provide to the plant without me having to provide a lot of extra inputs and really micromanaging that crop. Really trying to simplify the farming process, and but my goals are can be quite a bit different than Dylan's or anybody else's, but so far it's worked out well for us. Whereas Dylan's been profitable in his own regards with his philosophy, and there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's really no wrong answer. As long as what you're doing works for you and is leading you to be profitable, but you're not mortgaging the future to be profitable in that 1 year, then you're gonna stay in business a long time.
What I tell people, a lot of people ask about how I farm. A lot of what I tell people is I don't like to check myself into one box. I like to use every tool available to me. That's kind of been my philosophy over the years. On our farm, we've implemented cover crops, tillage, and no-till all into kind of a system. But this year we was just doing some really hard looking and trying to learn a few things.
That's hard right there. Then you get up above that and it just breaks away. I don't know if we really created a hard pan with this one tillage pass, but I think we kind of went on we're definitely at the beginning.
Well, let's turn the camera off here, and then me and you will try to flip one over the same way we did over there in the other field and just see how deep we go. Here's one thing Matt's got going for him on this farm was where he worked that chicken litter in. Look at that, got roots growing right through it.
But it looks like we still kind of got a seam right there, doesn't it?
Yeah, again.
I mean, it's not as concentrated as what it was on the last farm, but
Well, you done away with some of that blocky structure with the tillage. See, here's another thing, Matt. You see how you got a lot more fibrous?
Yeah, you got all them feeder roots right
Yeah,
there.
but we're seeing, similar results over here. You got these roots, and they're just not hardly wadded up as much. But he's definitely got a pan at a similar depth, and I mean he's got the same thing over here. He's got one root growing through that pan. There's a root from, I'm gonna say it's from him.
The big question is yeah, it looks great this year. Without further tillage, what's it going to look like next year? Is the big question.
Well, I say we come back and look at it again next year.
maybe when it's about 50 degrees outside instead of 85 with 100% humidity.
We're gonna give you guys something to look forward to next year. I don't know if Matt don't get enough views, he may decide he don't want to do this again next year.
1839, around 28,000 population. I think Kelly better be on her toes with the grain buggy this year.
It's pretty good looking corn here.
All right, Dylan, what's your final conclusions?
Well, this is my honest opinion. I think I am impressed that them roots was able to grow through that pan like that. But I believe if you could implement some deep tillage on your farm and keep using your covers, I believe you could speed the process up a little bit.
I think you're right. You know, my whole problem with tillage is just using tillage as a solution to the problem. But I think when you get especially like you're picking up a new farm that's got some really tough soil, plow it up, but then get your roots growing on it and keep your roots growing on it to keep the pores open.
I think, you using the covers, I think if you will create a pathway for them roots to go down and keep them roots down in that pathway, you will see some long-term benefits.
Yeah, I think so. And then, like I said, that farm across the road that is not as productive as one that we were on, I think I'm probably going to split that farm, try and do some deep tillage before we plant our cover crop, and see what our cotton crop looks like.
Create a passageway for them roots to go down in where they're not, where the cover is not having to do all the work. That kind of goes back to like I was talking about, using all the tools in your toolbox, and that's kind of our philosophy on our farm. And
well, right now I don't have that deep tillage tool in my toolbox. Do you think the hitch on that inline ripper hold up to all the horsepower on those New Holland tractors?
If it'll hold up that 4650, it will.
Or I need to hook it to the 4440.
Well, you'll test that power shift out.
I might get a few more views if I put it on the 4440.
Is that why you invited me back all that video with all them views on it on that 4440?
That's right, man. You're making me money on that.
There you go.
Getting some local celebrities out here.
Yeah, but
all right, guys. Well, I was hoping to put some corn or put some cotton and soybean roots, but this video is already long enough just looking at the corn, so might just do that in another video where we go look at some soybean and cotton. They got a lot different root structure with a big tap root, and it's a lot easier to see where you got compaction, where you got a tap root, and we'll go check those out probably in another video. As it is, I think we need to go back and get us a drink of water. Appreciate y'all watching. See you in the next one.